and all. I'm a white African, and you will never take that away.
Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will look at this white South African lady who seems sad over the fact that white people in Africa can't call themselves African. I really tried my best to try and find the original video, but it seems like she removed it. So I will just play people's responses to her video and come back to give my thoughts. I think from the responses from the video, we'll be able to get enough context as to what she said.
You're the only continent in the entire world where someone can't call themselves African based on the color of their skin.
Hey bestie, have you considered leaving?
We are the only continent in the entire world where someone can't call themselves African.
It wasn't Africans, black African people, who said that white people weren't Africans. It was the other way around. And to make sure that it was expressively clear to everyone that white people were not Africans, it was said time after time after time after time after time again. These were the rules of the time. These were the rules that your predecessor made. It's because in that period of time, black people were seen less than. So to be African or identify as African, you would be considered less than. Now, I know a lot of us will say, well, Shay, you know what? The apartheid was so long ago. No, it wasn't. The apartheid ended when I was born, and I'm 29 years old. It was not long ago. Also, I've actually been to South Africa 4 times, and I spent some time on my 3rd visit with the people from the Zulu tribe, right? And I've heard so many stories from these men and women about what the army, members of the army, were made to do to them. And these people are still alive. Some of them are a little bit older than my parents or the same age. Also, we need to stop acting like just because the apartheid ended, that this magical thing happened where black South Africans started getting equal opportunities and rights to loans and all these things, because that's not true. Like, it's happening, but we're in 2023 and it's not happening fast enough. The part that truly annoyed me though was at the end of her video where she started asking for education. Like, every single bad thing that has happened to black South African people happened on South African soil. So there is nothing a black South African can teach you. I'm just going to end with my usual routine. Good night.
Ooh, I've upset some people by calling myself a white African.
This is the exact page that she showed. White Africans of European ancestry refers to people in Africa who can trace full or partial ancestry to Europe. Now, the reason why those two words are used together, white African, is because Africa is a continent with many countries. And it is true that you can be a white South African, a white Nigerian, a white Namibian, if you were born in those countries, because that country is your nationality. So no one can take your nationality away from you. You will always be South African. But just because the words white African was found on the internet, it doesn't mean it exists in the way that you think it does. Because you are still of European ancestry. That is where your ancestors came from. That is why white people have always been referred to as Europeans. This one was obviously not around during apartheid, so I don't know if she even remembers or knows about these pictures that are all over the internet that you can find anywhere that said Europeans only. It doesn't make you less of a South African because that is your nationality. But you can never be African if you are of European descent. Colored people who have no African ancestry are Southeast Asian mostly. That is why also Indian South Africans are still Indian. They are not African. They are only South African by nationality. So if you were born in Namibia, you would be Namibian by nationality, but you would still be a European if you are white. The only people who can claim to be African are those with African ancestry. I really don't know what is so fucking difficult.
Ooh, I've upset some people by calling myself a white African.
This one confuses me now. So, my great-grandfather maternal is an Indian African. I can understand if you call yourself a white South African, but you're going to claim the whole continent of Africa? Didn't European people of European descent do enough? Can you call yourself African if the roots of your family trees is in Europe? And if memory serves, benches and things and doorways and train used to say Europeans only, blankes alleenlik. You see, nowadays it would say European Africans only. This is confusing. No.
European, I'm a white African, and you will never take that away.
Well, it is debatable. I mean, I could say you're a white South African, not African. But if you want to take that one, go ahead. I mean, you'll have a history of telling us stuff, and then later on we find out it's different. I mean, you made us believe that you'll build the pyramids. Turns out you didn't. You made us believe that Jesus was light in complexion. Turns out he wasn't. You made us believe that you came up with the elevators. Turns out you didn't. You made us believe that you came out with the first mobile phone. Turns out you didn't. You made us believe that you are the smart ones and came up with refrigerated trucks. Turns out you didn't. You made us believe that you invented the toilets. Turns out you didn't. You made us believe that you were the creators of Jack Daniels. Turns out you didn't. You made us believe, or you're trying to make us believe, that you jumped out of the pool because you just jumped out and not because it was a racist act. Turns out it wasn't. I mean, that's what you'll do. It just happens. Growing up, we were taught that Africans are barbaric and inhumane and uncultured. Now you'll want to be African. Hey, that's what you'll want. I don't know. Go ahead, call yourself whatever. Just don't call me late for supper.
It is not a matter of black and white, my friend. You really do not understand.
Why?
We are not Africans from Africa. We are white people, the descendants of the British and the Irish and the French people and the Dutch people. We are from Europe.
The only continent in the entire world where someone can't call themselves African.
Yeah, Africa's allowed to decide what it calls its colonizers. It's allowed that. It wasn't Africans who said that the European colonizers can't be African. In actual fact, it was the European colonizers who drove the point home again and again and again and again, over and over again, that they were not African, because to be African was to be considered less than, because those were the rules of the time. Those were the rules they made. And so it stands. Africa recognized it. I don't know why you're taking issue with Africa. It's not Africa's fault, it's Europe. Now, I also take issue with you wanting to pretend. You're like, oh, I'm a democracy, baby. I wasn't born during apartheid. I wasn't there. It has nothing to do with me. You're my generation. So just frankly, that's bullshit, because I know that your dad and my dad were in the army, because if they weren't, they would have served jail time. And you wouldn't look so nearly well cared for if your daddy was in jail. So, our dads were in the army. And I don't know if your dad speaks about what he was made to do in the army, but mine sometimes does when he was drunk. And I'm here to tell you that we are very much a part of it, because one generation is not that far away.
Before anything, I just want to say that I did take some time to go through this lady's TikTok page, and she does not seem to be a racist. And also noting the fact that we don't have the full video, We really don't know the full context of the original video, but I will comment on the statements that we heard. I share the same sentiments with the other people in this video, that it really was not the Africans who said whites can't call themselves African. It was them, the whites. They never wanted to be regarded as less than or an African, and hence they set up the whole apartheid system in South Africa, which reiterated the fact that they were whites or Europeans. And they also treated Africans just a little bit better than animals, or maybe a lot of people would argue that they treated Africans like animals. Back then, there were no whites saying, oh, we want to be called African because, look at how Africans were being treated. We note that one lady in the previous video said that she got accounts from black people telling her that the army treated them so badly. And also another lady, which is a white lady, saying that her father was in the army and her father does recall or does retell of the things that he had to do to black people or to Africans while he was in the army, which just shows you that the army really treated Africans badly. For two different people to give both sides of the story, one being on the side of the victim, which is the lady telling us that she was told by African people what the soldiers were doing to them back then, and the other being on the side of the perpetrator, which is the daughter of a person that was in the army back then, saying that her father recalls of the horrible things that they had to do to African people, which just shows you that there were no whites that wanted to be African because it didn't serve them. I mean, it's ironic that only now that there is a new system that does not give special treatment to Europeans or white people, it's only now that they want to be considered African. Also, African is someone who is of African descent or who has an African lineage, and that lady is clearly of European descent. So how is it even possible for her to be called African? Yes, she's South African. That is her nationality. But she is most definitely not African. Where have you ever heard of a black European? That makes no sense. Yes, there are black Brits or black Germans, but that is a matter of nationality and not race or ethnicity. So no, auntie, you are not white African, but white South African. Anyways, that's where I'll end this video for today. What are your thoughts on this issue? Please do share your thoughts respectfully down below in the comment section, liking and subscribing and turning on your post notifications for similar content and to support the channel. Thank you and bye!